Thank you very much. And the project I'm going to show you is a collaboration with institutions in Brazil and Belgium. So it's a project we've been developing with archaeologists, but also with indigenous communities from Brazil. The group I'm working with is the Southern J, which is a pre-Hispanic group that now the descendants of them are the Kaigangi and the Shopling. Now, I'm not talking much about the archaeology of the J people, the Southern J people, but I'm talking about how actually we've been working with the communities to using XR technology basically for the dissemination of their culture and the ways of life. So a little bit about myself. I am a lecturer at Salford University, but mostly I work with archaeologists and historians, making looking into the overlappings between technology and heritage. On that side, some of the projects I've been working on. So I've been doing some games about Anglo-Saxon archaeology, working in primary school classrooms, as well as with the Battle of Waterloo, more recently about the Industrial Revolution. A little bit of a shameless promotion. This is a book that we are just coming now. It's going to be published in December 18th about Assassin's Creed in the classroom. So all about the games of Assassin's Creed are used for educational purposes. I'm Chilean. So previously, before coming to the UK, I worked with Native American communities doing action research projects. So this project has a lot of is building from those experiences as well as what we did more recently. So first, a little bit of context. Latin America is a rich tapestry of indigenous and non-indigenous identities. The incredible diversity is something that, of course, we should celebrate, but unfortunately has not been the case throughout history and across the continent. I think this covers all South America. There's been a sustained efforts to erase indigenous identities by rapidly assimilating them into the dominant culture. So as a result of this process, some indigenous groups have become extinct, and there's been a sustained fight of indigenous groups to be recognized and to preserve their history and their heritage. In this context, I think media technologies have a very important part to play. However, the advancing of these technologies is so rapid that it's challenging even for developers to keep up with the pace of the new stuff coming out. It is a very exciting time, of course, with all what game engines now can do. But for many people, including indigenous communities, they are being left behind. So these groups have distinct cultures and distinct perspectives. And it's crucial to bridge this gap, not just for the sake of them, but for the sake of all of us, because they have completely different worldviews that actually become crucial in the challenges we're facing today. So this project basically tried to bring those technologies on this context. A little bit of some context that I found very, very important for this project is counter mapping, is something that helped us to understand how new technologies can be relevant for indigenous groups. Counter mapping involved creating alternative representations of indigenous territories and lands, understanding that maps are not just abstract representations, but also serve for political and ideological purposes. While participatory mapping is a step in the right direction, some elements that become lost in the translation when you move that into 2D representations. So as a way of conceptualizing it, what happens if we could not just having 2D representations like a map, but actually we could jump inside those maps and start inhabiting them. So something in immersive maps, I think we can also incorporate narrative layers. Map, of course, tells stories. So on this side, there is an interesting shift happening with indigenous media. After decades of persecution, false portrayals, prejudice, and erasure, the representation of Native American in mainstream media now is taking a different direction. And I think a very good case for this is this TV series, Reservation Dogs. I don't know if you've seen it. It's fantastic. It's premiered in 2021, and it brings to life the experiences of the indigenous communities with a touch of humor. I think the director is Taika Waititi. It's really a very nice one to watch. And another example I put there is a recent video made by children from Easter Island, which depicts the history of Otumatua, the first settler and ancestor of the Rapa Nui people. Indigenous games also demonstrate a similar transition from games like, for example, on top there, the controversial Atari Custer Revenge in the 80s, which exploited the issues of race, gender, and genocide for fun. In contrast, more recent games like Never Alone, Kisima Ignigo Chuma, that example over there, was created in collaboration with the Alaskan community, providing both a cultural heritage form but also a very fulfilling gaming experience. However, there is much to learn and to discover regarding games for indigenous self-expression and for self-determination. So, as mentioned, this project is centered about the Southern Jay people, a pre-Hispanic group from the Brazilian highlands. And this project has a very significant political aspect. The previous administration of Jair Bolsonaro in Brazil enforced policies that gravely jeopardized the rights of indigenous communities throughout his government that is finished now. Bolsonaro policies target indigenous groups living in the Brazilian Amazon with the goal of eliminating all these legal safeguards against unlawful occupation, exploitation, and commercialization of their lands. So, our project has three main goals here, which are listed there. Firstly, we wanted to collaborate with our partners, like Bridging Archaeology and indigenous communities. Through this collaboration, we aim to explore the ways that we could move forward together in an inclusive manner, but also in an ethical manner. Secondly, we wanted to develop an educational resource, enhancing the understanding of the archaeology and the life ways of the Che people. And the last goal was to produce a participatory design framework to work with indigenous communities. So we started with creating the landscape of the Brazilian highlands. We took a map that is from the Sitio dos Albinos, one of the archaeological sites, and then we transformed that into a terrain using the Unity game engine. We made sure, of course, in that process to include the vegetation and all the different sort of elements from the environment. Let's see if I can make this work to show you the... I don't know, that's probably we have to go...
It's my fault, apologies. I can get it for you, I think.
All right. So,
just bear me a second while I get this. So that should come to an online link. Oh, doing that. And then we can... It goes into presentation mode.
I can tell you what happened there.
Yeah, it's because it's stuck in presentation mode for some reason. Let's end show. A second. Just bear me a second. I think it tried to open a link, didn't it?
Yeah, it's just the link. So
is this the one?
This is the one, yeah. So, it's going to be a little bit of... Right. So what you see there is how we implemented as well the day, sort of at night, different lighting within the group. So it's a very short video. So it seems I need to go back to the presentation now. How we go back to the presentation?
Yeah. So I can flick back to that. Look at my YouTube history now. Bloody hell, brave. So QAnon, 5G, giants. It's not really.
Right, cool.
Okay.
So the changes in perception of the landscape was something that was very interesting as time goes by, and it's an integral part of dwelling, borrowing this concept from Tim Ingold, adding a new layer of complexity to this, like something that is not just now a two-dimensional form of representation. Now the video is absent here. Right, okay. So the buildings as well and the material culture was recreated based on references found in literature. So the reconstruction process was largely based on the interpretation of the archaeological evidence that we found. But there was something very interesting about this, was that for many of you archaeologists, you know that many of the elements that basically what archaeologists found there is just a series of posts, right? And all the rest is interpretation. So that brings us the opportunity to start like testing different hypotheses of how that look. And in the video, that please Keith, right? If I can show the video.
If you press it on the link,
yeah,
and then I'll just have to come out of presentation mode. It's because
that video lasts just 2 seconds, but it's worth it.
Don't blink.
Right. Okay. Let's go.
You'll miss the past.
It goes.
Okay.
That's fine. Yeah. So yeah, for the archaeologists participating in the project, they've been working for decades with geoarchaeology, but they never had this experience of actually going inside the building, looking how that looked, for example, at different times of day. So it was very interesting to see, for example, those reactions of people like saying, well, 20 years working with archaeology of the Southern Jay, and suddenly coming and say like, oh, looks very cozy, right? Those sort of things that you can get with these technologies. And that, of course, changes when you go into AR. So we also recreated, of course, some characters there, with some artificial intelligence to make it work. I probably will rush now with, I don't know,
4 more minutes.
4 more minutes, so.
I'll come out of this and go back into presentation, which is this one.
It's all working well. Look at this.
Right, you got it now.
It's like we rehearsed this.
So,
We need to be Chris Whitty.
right. So yeah, also there's another video there where it just shows the interaction with objects. So we make some scripts as well to interact with all these artifacts, lithics, ceramics, and everything. I'm not going to show you that.
We can show it at the end if we've got time.
Social presence was something very interesting as well, of modeling some of the characters, putting it there. For that, we used the new labs that we have at Salford for motion capture, so we could actually add some life to those characters. That's me. I look very cool on that suit. But there's something that actually went quite in the wrong direction, because when we moved this project, I will show you in a minute, into AR, and we use mixed reality to look the characters in the real size, it just felt wrong, right? And it felt wrong because it brought those, I couldn't see basically what was wrong at first, but then I realized that we were making something, we were basically, by creating a mixed reality exhibition with this project, we were bringing up, again, to Media City, the concept of the human zoos that were quite an attraction during the 19th century, right? But that never came when we were developing. It was just something that came. So there's some ethical aspects that we need to consider with projects like this. What we put together in Media City was a blended space exhibition. Blended space is borrowed from linguistics on how we actually interact with different sort of, or switch between different spaces, physical spaces, but also virtual spaces in ways that are very dynamic and fluid. So the exhibition we put together in Media City about this project consisted on a 360 projection of the world, with the sounds as well, with the lights going on. And to move into this space, we created an interactive table where you could actually move around, changing locations. For that, we used sort of the metaphor of the campfire. So just putting your campfire in different places in the map, then the whole space around you was switching. And to bring the artifacts, and at first humans as well, to life, we use HoloLens technology. So with the HoloLens, the shame with this is that it's a very individual experience, whereas the projection is, of course, a communal thing. But with the HoloLens, you could play with the artifacts, you could see them, and that was when actually we put the characters, and that they felt wrong. So we took the characters out of the presentation, and we just concentrated on artifacts. And lastly, all the project went into the metaverse. So it is now possible for us, and that's the continuation of the project. We're doing workshops with archaeologists and with people in Brazil, indigenous groups, in schools in Santa Catarina, where we will get the guys there to evaluate this and continue with the project. And that's my avatar, if you haven't actually figured out that.
Just before you wrap up, is if people want to collaborate with you, Juan, Salford, and the practice that you're doing, because it's obviously very interesting, is there a way people can reach out to you, or how can they get in touch with you if they wanted to collaborate or work with you?
Yeah, of course. I'm up to it.
Again, we can probably share if you're happy to share.
Yeah, so just go and speak to Juan. I know he's doing amazing stuff.
And if you would like to have a test on the spatial metaverse tool, that's the link. So you can actually go with your phones into this open space of the JP pool.
We'll leave it open, slide on a few seconds if you want to do that. Round of applause for Juan. There's more seats at the front if you want to. If you just arrived, if you have just turned up, there's pizzas at the back. There's soft drinks. They're all there. You've had it all. So just help yourself.
Thank you so much, Juan. Did anybody get to see the physical space when it was up in Salford? No? It was absolutely amazing. It was really beautifully done. It really made you feel quite different. And I imagine that's really nice to separate the social version of the same tools and obviously the game version as well, which can be played anywhere. Are there any plans, Juan, that the physical version would be exhibited anywhere else in the future, or?
Not yet, but we know how to do it. So yeah, we can reply it afterwards. I think that's on the cards.
Nice one.
So yeah, fantastic project. And what else is better than going through the experience and being able to interact with it yourself?